everybody, what is up? My name is Mackenzie.
And I'm Jonathan.
We are husband and wife, and we'd like to welcome you to TerreDice.
And today we're taking a look at Wingspan Asia, the latest expansion by Stonemaier Games.
And I am a big fan of the base game, and I am here to tell you why we are so excited to tell you why Wingspan Asia is the best expansion so far. Let's dive in.
Alright, so Wingspan Asia is an expansion in 3 different ways. It introduces a 1 to 2 player duet mode as a standalone game that can be played with just this box. You don't need the base game. It also introduces a bunch of new Asian birds which you can shuffle in with your main deck and enjoy in your main game experience. And it introduces a 6 to 7 player flock mode game that involves multiple dice trays and 2 players simultaneously.
Now, if you haven't played the base game before, I highly encourage you to go and watch our Best Board Games for Couples Part 2 video. We go give an overview of the base game, and also we reviewed the Oceania expansion last year, so you can go check that out as well.
We did an overview of the base game in there too.
So, but just to give you the general concept, we are bird watchers, and we are trying to cite different birds, feed them, note what they eat, collect eggs, and do all different stuff, and the person that gets the most points at the end of the game wins. That's the basic concept. And in this expansion, we have a lot of new goodies, like Jonathan was saying, so let's dive into more details about that. So our first experience with this game was flock mode, which is the 6 to 7 player mode.
Go big or go home.
Yeah, so we were lucky enough, we got 6 people to get around and play Wingspan Asia flock mode, and it's really cool. So how you do it, and how you don't have Wingspan go on forever, is that you have 2 people playing at the exact same time. And you side that by each player has a color, and on a little circular desk in the middle, you play with the color opposite of you at the same time.
Yes, so you have this dial that's kind of turning around for each round. And we mentioned that this is a standalone game too, so that means it comes with its own sort of dice palette and its own Wingspan bird tray. And so one side will have that, the other side will have the base game tray, and you're going to be picking from those birds and those food. Now, where this gets super cool, you may know that from some of the expansions and base games, there are these cards that say, once between turns, if another player does this, you do this. Okay, now double it. So now you have to pay attention to 2 people at once to see, oh, did they do that? Did they do that?
Yeah.
To get those once between turns, they activate almost every single time. And it keeps you engaged through that whole cycle while you're waiting for you to go again. Now, because it's 2 simultaneous players, that also means that there's only 3 people, and then you go again, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So it really, really speeds up the game.
Yes, and what I noticed in this game, as opposed to other versions of Wingspan, is it's a different strategy. I feel like in flock mode, you're working in abundance. So instead of starving to get resources, you were going to have this overflow, and that's because of these cards where you were getting things from other players.
Everyone rolls a die.
Yes, so you will find yourself more, instead of how do I make something out of nothing? Instead, you'll be like, well, I have all this. What is the best move I can do with all these resources? So it's a different mindset you use when you play this, which I found very refreshing.
And let's talk about those cards. There's a couple new ones that are very different. So one of them in particular that I'm thinking of is this dove that when you activate them, you get to draw cards and the dove flies to the player on your right's board, and you get to put it in any of the 3 zones. So you're passing birds even onto other people's palettes, which I thought was kind of crazy.
A lot more player interaction. And then there's one, I forget what bird it is, that I like, that it says I think it's like a vulture, you copy the person to your right, their hidden goal at the end of the game. So you don't know what it's going to be. So that's just another fun interaction as well.
Yeah. There is one other mechanic in this game that there are a bunch of cards that do this, and it's really interesting. They, when activated, let you roll any dice to try to get a bonus. It's some of the Predator ones, a couple of the other ones on activation. But essentially, it says roll any dice, which means you can roll dice that have already been played. You can also roll the dice in the dice tray. So when you have a full dice tray of food that you don't want, but you know you want to get food next time, I'll just roll 3 from the tray. So it's a nice way to get dice off of the tray in a way that you don't normally, which I thought was really interesting.
And I just feel like the cards in general, they were really creative. every time when people were reading the different cards, I was like, whoa, that's so cool. And what you're going to notice with the Wingspan Asia, most of the cards are a when activated action. So, which is
very heavily
when activated. So I think that they did that on purpose to allow for that player interaction, because that means every time there's going to be a lot of stuff happening between those players.
Interestingly, this expansion also features all types of cards. So you do have the round end, you do have the game end effects, as well as the when played, when activated. You just get a lot of good variation.
So it said it's from 6 to 7 player. We played it at 6, and I feel like that's where it thrives. Now at 7 player, you're going to have a variation in the mode, and you had some thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same game, but the interesting thing is, since you have an uneven number of players, you have 4 people around one dice tray, 3 people around the other. And that means that on specific turns, there's going to be 2 people at the same dice tray who both have to go. So if you both choose the same action, you're both going to get food out of the tray or something. There's actually like a tiebreaker where like this player is going to go first and then this player is going to go second. So it's just kind of an interesting thing where it's like you got to think a little bit more, and also on odd numbered turns someone's going to be left with being the last person to go, and they're not going to go simultaneously with another player.
True. And I would say when you're playing flock mode, at least most of the table, I think people should have played Wingspan before, because you are doing those simultaneous turns. It's going to be harder for people to help out a new player. We played one new player, he got the concept, but I feel like if everyone was new at the table and only one person was teaching the rules, that would be a lot to handle with people going at the same time.
You'd be teaching multiple people at once. So
and it's also important to note that we said this is a standalone game, but not for the flock. You will need that base game, because you need those 2 different dice trays and the amount of food you're going to use, because that was probably the craziest thing. We went through, I think, all the eggs.
And
then almost all of the food. So that's what I was talking about with abundance. You're just going to be using a lot.
Okay, so another thing that a lot of folks have been wanting to know, I've been reading this in the Board Game Geek forums and everything, is what is the compatibility like with the other expansions? So it's fully compatible with all expansions. And even these 2 new boards that are added have a side with Nectar on them. So you can play with the Oceania expansion, use the Nectar with all 7 players, even in flock mode.
So that's flock mode. Let's talk about the Duet mode. Now what's fascinating with the Duet mode Wingspan Asia is that this is a standalone game with you can buy just this if you just want it to be the 2-player mode. You do not have to buy the base game if you are only planning on playing it with 2-player, which I thought was really cool. It's the same size as the Oceania expansion, which is really nice. It doesn't take up a lot of space. So if you're one of those people that you're like, you know what, I am just going to play this with my boyfriend or girlfriend and that's it, then maybe Wingspan Asia is going to be the right one for you, and you don't have to buy all the others.
Yeah.
But if you plan on if you plan on wanting to play with more people, I would invest in the base game.
All right, so Duet mode is essentially a regular 2-player game of Wingspan, except that we are competing for this like tech tree thing in the middle that is our bonus objectives, which becomes so central to your strategy. So essentially you're playing your normal game, except that anytime you play a bird card, you're gonna take one of these yin-yang tokens, they're black and white for the 2 players, and you're gonna place it on a matching attribute for your bird in the matching habitat. So when you do that, sometimes you'll get a bonus. Sometimes you'll get like a die or a card or an egg based on which habitat it was in. But in addition to that, you're going to be working towards the bonus goals, which are things like having the most around the edge, having the most in a horizontal line, having the most covering food, or not covering the fewest bonus spaces. So this whole sort of meta game goes into like which attributes you're picking, and to cap it off, you're going to get 1 point for every token in your biggest contiguous group at the end of the game. And I just love working around that extra strategy like that. It adds a puzzle to it that is just so much fun.
So components for Wingspan Asia. So just like all the other expansions, we are getting a new set of eggs, and this one is a beautiful, I call it a red polished nails, your firecracker red nail color egg being added to the game, which is really pretty. So I enjoyed that to add it to the game. And then, like we said, we have these yin yang tokens. Now they do connect and form that yin yang symbol, but you never do it in the game, which I thought was a little bizarre, and I really wanted them to connect. Because you don't don't share spaces when you both achieve a goal, so you never have that connection.
Yeah, I did think of a fun variant though.
Yeah.
So basically, you do friendly ties where you can both achieve all of the same pieces on the tree, except that if it was a bonus space, only the first person who was there gets the bonus.
True,
So.
but that would be my negative with it. I was just kind of disappointed. I really wanted those yin yangs to go together, but still really nice components. You can set them off to the side and they can go together. But overall, high quality components. For the dice tray, you will be just getting it's important to know, a flat cardboard piece. You won't be getting the traditional birdhouse like in the base game. So if you're wanting that birdhouse, you do need to get that base game. But if you're fine with just playing on a standard board, then you can just do that.
Yeah. And I'm going to be honest, it did not bother me at all. Like, not one bit. So for me personally, you roll the dice, you put them on the thing. It worked just fine. It is really nice having the bird tray, and I do like having the nice birdhouse.
Birdhouse, yeah.
Yeah. But I just didn't feel like it was necessary. I feel like you get so much out of this box. It just feels so worth it.
True. But if you do have your heart set on that, you do need to get the base game for that birdhouse. So the biggest question is, which one should you get? Well, I think if you have a friend that already owns the base game, or you think you are just going to play this at 1 to 2 player, I would go ahead and just get Wingspan Asia. I think you can rock with that because you can play the duet mode just like a regular game of Wingspan, or you can add in the tech tree to enhance it. So you can do that. If you were looking to play anything with the flock mode, you are going to need that base game. Or if you want to add in these other expansions, you will need the base game as well. So that's my overall opinion. Just want to play 2 player? Go ahead and do this. Anything else? You're gonna need that base game.
Overall, I gotta say, I'm a huge fan of this expansion. They knocked it out of the park. This is my favorite Wingspan expansion. It takes the biggest leaps. It's just really solid. I can't speak enough how much I love these new modes.
Yeah, and I think it's really cool that they added it to be a bigger game. Plus they added it to be a really cool 2-player game. Like, to get both in the same expansion, I love it. So great job, Stonemaier game.
This is your 7 Wonders duel.
Yes.
It's so fun.
All right, everyone, and that is our review of Wingspan Asia. I will put a link down below where you can sign up so you can know when this game will be available. And I'll also put links down below where you can get all of the other expansions and base game as well. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, make sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you can know whenever we put out a new video. And we'll see you next time.
Happy playing!